Okay, let's take a look at factorising trinomials. So, what is a trinomial? Well, simply put, a trinomial is an expression, an algebraic expression, which is in the form, meaning the format, ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is equal to 1. And what that means is we're looking for an expression that's simply x squared plus a number x plus a number. So if a is equal to 1, that just means it's 1x squared. So obviously if it's 1x squared, it's just x squared. We don't put the 1. Plus a number bx plus a number c. When we have an expression in this form that we're looking to factorise, we can do it in quite a particular way. The rule is we must find two numbers that multiply to get whatever the c value is and that add to whatever the b value is. So we need two numbers that multiply to this one and add to this one. So for example, in the expression x squared plus 4x plus 3, obviously this is in the form of a trinomial because we've got ax squared, and a in this case is 1 because we don't have a number written here. And if there's no number, there's no coefficient of x squared, we know it is 1. So we have x squared plus b is 4, x plus c is 3. So x squared plus 4x plus 3 is a trinomial. We can pick two numbers that multiply to c, or in this case to 3, and add to b, in this case the 4. We can choose the numbers 3 and 1 because they satisfy the rule. We say 3 times 1 gives us 3, and they were supposed to multiply to c, so 3 times 1 is 3, so it satisfies this, and they had to add to b. 4 is in place of b, 3 plus 1 is 4. So these two numbers satisfy the rule, and hence we would use them to factorise. Let's have a look at some examples of factorising trinomials. So the first example we'll look at is x squared plus 4x plus 3, the one we looked on the previous page. And we've already decided that using our rules of they have to add to this term here, add to c, or 3 in this case, and multiply to 3 in this case, and add to 4. We're asking what numbers multiply to 3, add to 4. We've decided it was 1 and 3 because 1 times 3 is 3. 1 plus 3 is 4. So once we've established that, which we have, we can input these into a pretty specific format. And here's the format here. This is actually the answer. What we see here is we see a set of brackets with x at the beginning, and then the numbers we decided here, the two numbers, 1 and 3, we put them in the second position. So each time, anything in the black writing here, the bracket x, the bracket x, we actually keep the same, so long as this term is x squared. If this was like a squared, and this is an a, you just change this to a. There's no difference depending on what pronumeral it is. Obviously, they have to be the same pronumeral, but there's no difference as to what the pronumeral is. You just replace it in the brackets. But we use this format where we put the pronumerals at the start of each bracket, and in the second position of each bracket, we put the numbers we decided, which was 1 and 3. So that's how we do trinomials. Let's have a look at another example. X squared plus 7x plus 10. So what do we have to do? We have to determine what two numbers multiply to 10, because 10 is in the position of c, and add to get 7. Let's have a think. How can we work out what numbers multiply to 10 and add to 7? Well, there's a number of ways we can do it. We could simply just think about it for a bit and try and work it out, or we could look at what we call the factor pairs of 10, because we're trying to multiply to 10, so we work out all the different numbers that do just that, multiply to 10. So I know that multiplying to 10, we can do 1 times 10 is an option. We can do 2 times 5. And they're the two ways in which we can get 10 when we multiply. 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. Now, so either of these could satisfy the rule for C, could tell us what multiplies to 10. But which one of them, only one of them, will add to get 7? Which one adds to get 7? 2 and 5, that's right. So 2 and 5 must be our set of numbers because 2 times 5 is 10 and 2 plus 5 is 7, as we see here. And so just ask yourself, referring to this one maybe, what is our brackets going to look like? What is our factorised expression going to look like? Well, we're going to have x's at the start, aren't we? And then in the second position of each bracket, we're going to have the two numbers, 2 and 5. So it will look a bit like this. X and x at the start, and then 2 and 5 in the positions. Fantastic. So that one's correct. Now, it's all well and good to know how this works, but let's have a look at, let me just bring this up. Let's have a look at why this works, and I'll explain to you. So why does this method work? Because it is a little bit of an abstract method, isn't it? It's not necessarily a conventional method. We're sort of looking at a bit of a trick here to do them. So if we end up with double brackets once we've factorized a trinomial, so what we can actually do is we can expand the double brackets to work out why it works. So we know when we expand double brackets, we use crab clause, and we times the short, we times the long, times the short, times the long. And what we end up with is x times x, x squared, x times 5, 5x, 2 times x, 2x, 2 times 5, 10. Now, if you're not sure how to do that, or that was a little bit confusing for you, there is a video on expanding double brackets, and I'll link that in the description for you below. Go watch that. Pause this video, go watch that, and then come back and watch the rest of this one. So now that we've expanded that, we see we have an expression here, x squared plus 5x plus 2x plus 10. But that's not quite what we started with. But the way it works out is that because we worked out the numbers that add to get 7, when we multiply them by x, we end up with, well, 5 and 2, which when we collect them up using like terms gives us that positive 7 we were after. So we end up back at what we started with. So that's kind of why it works. We'll look at two more examples before we finish up. These ones are important because they use negative numbers, and they can be notoriously difficult to work with in trinomials. So the first example we'll look at is x squared plus 9x take 22. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video in a minute and see if you can work out the two numbers that add to get 9 and multiply to get negative 22. Just pause the video now and see if you can work them out. Okay, if you've had a guess at what they could be, let's have a look at what we have. So what two numbers multiply to get negative 22 and add to get 9? Well, it would have to be 11 and negative 2. So we have to manipulate negatives because we know the only way we can get a negative answer when we multiply is by multiplying a positive and a negative. Because if we multiply a negative and a negative, that gives us a positive. And if we multiply a positive and a positive, well, of course, that gives us a positive. So we know from the get-go, one had to be negative and one had to be positive. So we've chosen 11 and negative 2 because 11 times 2 is 22 and positive times negative, negative. So negative 22, it satisfies that part. But then when we write it in this order, 11 plus negative 2 equals 9. Well, yeah, 11 plus negative 2 means 11 take 2, and 11 take 2 is 9. So it satisfies both parts. So again, I want you to pause the video now that we've decided what the two numbers are and see if you can work out what the brackets will look like. Okay, so having thought about what the brackets look like, we are going to reveal them. We start with x's, as always, at the start of the brackets, and then we add the numbers in the second part of the brackets, the numbers that we decided on here. Now note, I've actually added a positive 11, a plus 11, and a negative 2 or a take 2. So this becomes take 2 if the number is negative, and this is obviously plus 11 because the 11 was positive. We had a positive 11, plus 11, and negative 2, take 2. Awesome. Well done. I hope you got that one right. We're going to look at one more, which involves negatives, and then it'll be on to you to practice some. So x squared take 8x take 20. Let's say we need to work out two numbers that multiply to, not 2, that's supposed to be 2, negative 8. So it didn't get updated. And add to negative 20. So what could those numbers be? Well, 2 times negative 10 gives us negative 20. And 2 plus negative 10 means 2 take 10 means negative 8. Perfect. So what do? We put it into the brackets with x at the start, and we put our numbers in. So we end up with x and x, positive 2 plus 2, negative 10 take 10. Well done, and that's our correct answer. Alrighty, so thank you for watching. I hope you learnt how to factorise trinomials and you feel a bit more confident using this little trick where we find what adds to get the term B and what multiplies to get the term C. Practice some more questions and get yourself proficient at these. They're not too tricky, but the negative ones can cause some issues sometimes, so make sure you practice plenty of those. Thank you everybody, and have a good day.